When Lucas was 5 years old, his parents tragically died in a car accident, and since then his grandmother Margaret has been raising him. She devoted her life to giving her grandson the best, gave him all her love, often forgetting her own needs. Margaret always taught Lucas to live honestly, value family, and work hard. Her small house became a place of warmth and safety for him. Now Lucas is 23 years old. He works as a car mechanic at a local workshop and dreams of owning his own business one day. He loves his grandmother and tries to thank her for years of care. One day, a young girl named Emily came to their small town. She was an orphan, lost her parents as a teenager, and lived alone for many years, constantly changing places of residence. Emily was looking for a job and hoped to start a new life in a quiet town. Margaret's grandmother met her by chance at a local grocery store. They talked, and Margaret immediately felt that Emily was a kind and sincere girl. Her story touched the grandmother's heart because she knew what it was like to lose a family and remain alone. "Do you have a place to stay?" Margaret asked. Emily nodded and answered that she was currently looking for temporary housing. Margaret did not think long and said, "Then you can live with us. I have a grandson, Lucas, and I'm sure you'll make friends with him." Emily was grateful for such kindness and agreed. That same evening, she moved into Margaret and Lucas's house. At first, Lucas was a little surprised by his grandmother's decision, but when he saw Emily, his heart trembled. She was not only attractive, but also had a warm and sensitive character. The girl quickly became part of their family. She helped Margaret with the housework, and she often brought Lucas lunch at the auto repair shop. Their conversations became more and more personal, and something more than just friendship began to develop between them. After a few months, Lucas and Emily realized that they loved each other. They decided to live together and support each other in everything. Margaret was very happy to see how her grandson finally found someone who understands and loves him. However, just when everything seemed perfect, a shadow appeared that threatened to destroy their happiness. The life of Lucas and Emily was quite harmonious. They spent evenings together, talked about plans for the future, and Grandmother Margaret was happy that her grandson had finally found a person who became close to him. One evening, Emily decided to take a walk to the local store to buy a few things for dinner. On the way back, she met a neighbor, Tom, who was just returning from work. Tom was a polite middle-aged man, and Emily always spoke calmly to him. They stopped by the side of the road near their house, and Emily was telling him how Margaret had taught her to bake pies, laughing that it was an art. Tom was smiling too, cracking a few friendly jokes. It was at this moment that Lucas was returning home after a hard day at the auto repair shop. His attention was drawn to the headlights illuminating the figures of Emily and Tom. He paused for a few seconds as he watched them laugh, his face instantly turning somber. Lucas approached them, his heart already seething with jealousy. "What is happening here?" he asked sharply, stopping right in front of Emily. Tom raised his hands in peace. "We were just talking," he answered calmly. "Nothing special." "Did you talk?" Lucas looked at Emily. "Do you always talk like that on the road?" Emily was visibly embarrassed. "Lucas, don't be stupid. We just exchanged a few words." But her words only added fuel to the fire. Lucas could feel the anger boiling inside him, and without holding back, he grabbed Emily's hand. "Do you think I don't see what's going on here?" he growled. Emily tried to break free, but Lucas pushed her in his heat so that she almost fell. Tom intervened instantly, stepping between them. "Calm down, Lucas. It is not at all what you imagine." Emily quickly got up and, looking at Lucas with tears in her eyes, whispered, "I didn't think you were capable of such a thing." She hurried back to the house, leaving Lucas and Tom in the middle of the road. The next morning, when Lucas woke up, he found her things gone. There was a note on the kitchen table. "Lucas, I thought I could build a new life here, but I was wrong. You are dear to me, and I am grateful for everything that you and your grandmother have done for me. But I cannot forgive what happened yesterday. I can't live with a person who raises his hand. I'm leaving, and please don't look for me. Emily." Lucas stood with the note in his hands, not believing that his anger and jealousy had made her leave. Grandma Margaret, noticing her grandson's condition, just shook her head. "I always taught you to be strong, but I never thought that you would use this strength like this. These words hit Lucas hard. He understood that he had made an irreparable mistake. He loved Emily, but his actions ruined everything. Emily left Lucas and Margaret's house without saying where she was going. Lucas spent the next few days thinking and regretting, but his pride prevented him from calling her or trying to find her. In fact, Emily went to another city. She boarded a bus and headed to Portland, where a man she had met through Instagram a few months earlier was waiting for her. His name was Ryan, and their communication began casually, with likes and comments under photos. Over time, their correspondence became more personal, and Ryan supported Emily when she complained about the strain in her relationship with Lucas. Ryan lived in a spacious apartment in the city center, worked in the IT field, and had an attractive appearance. Emily found him kind and understanding. When she found herself at a crossroads after Lucas raised his hand on her, Ryan became the person she turned to for help. "I can't stay there anymore," she wrote to him on the night when everything happened. "Well, come to me. I will help you start a new life," he answered almost immediately. Ryan met her at the bus station with a big smile and a hug. "Everything will be fine now," he said, taking her bags. Emily was relieved. It seemed to her that she had found a new chance for peace and stability. Emily moved in with Ryan and felt safe. After her experience with Lucas, she believed that Ryan gave her what she lacked: peace and understanding. Their communication, which started virtually, has now become real. One evening after dinner, Ryan invited her to see a movie. They laughed, shared their thoughts, and an intimate intimacy arose between them. Emily felt the warmth of his touch and felt like she could relax for the first time in a long time. He leaned in slowly, asking her with his eyes if she minded, and when she gave a faint nod, their lips met. The kiss was gentle, unhurried, and you could feel his care in it. Ryan gently ran his hand through her hair and then, picking her up in his arms, carried her into the bedroom. He was attentive, did not make sudden movements, and constantly watched her reactions. For Emily, this moment was not just a physical connection, but a way to feel needed, accepted, and understood. They spent the night together in the warmth and closeness that Emily had been missing so much lately. But when Ryan fell asleep, Emily was left lying in the dark, staring at the ceiling. Her thoughts drifted back to Lucas, to their moments together before they lost what they had. She felt that she was still carrying many unresolved questions and emotions that could not be drowned out even by the warmth of another person. But over time, Emily saw that Ryan was not what he seemed to be on the internet. After a few weeks, Emily began to notice that he treated her like his property. He constantly checked her phone, accused her of not cooking anything, that she didn't clean the house well, and asked questions about her every move. She realized that she had run away from one problem only to run into another. The sun was just beginning to break through the windows as Emily quietly gathered her things. She didn't want to wake Ryan. He was sleeping peacefully, and this was her last moment to collect her thoughts and make a final decision. She sought comfort and warmth, but instead of peace, it only brought her more confusion. It seemed to her that Ryan was not what she was looking for. Her decision to stay with him was impulsive and perhaps wrong. Before she left a short note on the kitchen table. "Ryan, thank you for your kindness and support, but I realize that I have to understand myself before continuing a relationship with someone. It's not about you, it's about me. I need time and space. Goodbye, Emily." Emily left the apartment, leaving her keys on the table, and headed for the bus station. She did not know where exactly she would go, but she understood that she must be independent and deal with her feelings without relying on others. Emily arrived at the bus station with one bag in her hands and thoughts racing through her head. She did not know where to go next. Her life seemed broken, and now she was alone. Sitting on a bench under the cold night sky, she felt lost. She had no money for a hotel, and the bus station, although it seemed like a safe place, was empty for the night. She decided to stay here until morning, waiting for the first bus to go somewhere where she could start over. Around midnight, a man stopped by her. He was drunk, his movements were clumsy, and his eyes burned with a strange brilliance. "Hello, beautiful," he said, sitting down next to her. Emily tensed but tried to stay calm. I'm just waiting for the bus," she answered quietly, trying not to meet his eyes. "But what kind of bus is there at such a time?" The man laughed. "Don't be afraid, I just want to talk." Emily tried to ignore him, but he became insolent. The man grabbed her hand, and she realized that the situation was becoming dangerous. She tried to break free, but there was no one at the desert station to help her. Despite her attempts to resist, the man pushed her against the wall behind the benches. Her cries broke the silence, but remained unanswered. He attacked her with all his strength, leaving Emily helpless, confused, and broken. In the morning, when the sun began to rise, Emily was sitting on the same bench, curled up in a ball. Her clothes were torn, and her body was shaking from cold and pain. She felt as if her whole life was falling apart before her eyes. The bus station was starting to come alive, and the first people were paying attention to her. Someone asked if she needed help, but she just shook her head, unable to speak. Emily knew she couldn't handle it on her own. She needed to find someone she could trust. Sitting on the bench in the cold and silence, Emily gathered her strength and took out her phone. She didn't know where to turn, but one name came to mind. Sarah, a childhood friend they'd grown up with in boarding school. Sarah was like a sister to her, and even though they hadn't seen each other in a long time, Emily decided to take a chance. She dialed the number she had saved in her phone. The receiver did not pick up for a long time, but eventually a sleepy voice was heard on the other end. "Hello? Sarah, it's me. Emily." Her voice shook, but she tried to speak clearly. "Emily? Oh God, I haven't heard from you in a long time. What happened?" Sarah woke up completely, feeling something wrong. Emily paused, trying to collect her thoughts. I'm in trouble. I have nowhere else to go. Can I come to you?" Sarah did not hesitate for a second. "Of course, come. I'm in Seattle right now. You can stay with me as long as you need." Emily felt a huge sense of relief. "Thank you, Sarah. I just didn't know who to turn to." "We are a family, remember?" Sarah said warmly. "Come, I'm waiting for you." Emily mustered the last of her strength and boarded the first bus to Seattle. Sarah was always someone who knew how to support. When Emily arrived, Sarah was already waiting for her at the bus station. She hugged her friend as if she wanted to protect her from the whole world. "You look terrible," Sarah said, but her voice was full of concern. "Let's go. I prepared a room for you." At Sarah's apartment, Emily finally felt safe. She was able to wash, eat, and sleep a little. But the pain from the experience did not disappear. Sarah didn't ask anything, giving her time. That evening, sitting on the couch with a cup of tea, Emily began to talk. She did not hold back tears when she talked about what happened at the station. "Sarah, I don't know how to live on," she admitted. Sarah took her hand. "You have already taken the first step by contacting me. We will survive it together." Sarah's support gave Emily the strength to start a new chapter. She decided to stay in Seattle, find a job, and try to gradually put her life back together. But the past has not completely left her. The memories of what had happened and the pain stayed with her as a reminder of what she had been through. Emily began to return to normal life. Sarah supported her in everything, helping her find a job, encouraging her hobbies, and giving Emily time when she just wanted to be alone. Life was slowly getting better, but the physical malaise she had been experiencing lately was starting to bother her. She often felt tired, nauseous, and had a strange appetite. At first, she thought it was stress and overwork, but when these symptoms persisted, Sarah suggested, "Maybe you should take a pregnancy test." Emily shuddered at the words. The idea seemed unrealistic to her, but she decided to check herself to rule out such a possibility. That evening, she took the test. 2 clear stripes on it became a shock. She sat in silence for a long time, looking at the test, her thoughts racing wildly. "It can't be," she whispered. Sarah, who had been waiting in the living room, entered the room. Seeing Emily's face, she understood everything without words. "Are you pregnant?" Emily just nodded, tears running down her cheeks. "But from whom?" she whispered. She began to go through the possibilities in her head. It could have been Lucas, her ex, or the man who attacked her that terrible night at the train station, or Ryan, with whom she spent the night in Portland. "What will you do?" Sarah asked, hugging her. Emily shook her head, unsure of the answer. "I don't even know how to find out." "I cannot come to terms with the fact that this could be the child of the man from the station." Sarah took her hand. "First, you need to give yourself time. You are not alone now. We will solve it together." Emily went to the doctor to confirm the pregnancy, and find out the due date. The doctor said that the pregnancy occurred about 2 months ago. It coincided with her last night with Lucas and what happened at the train station and the nights she spent with Ryan. Emily understood that without a DNA test, she would not be able to find out the truth. But even more than that, she was scared of how she would be able to raise a child knowing that the person who hurt her could be the father. "I don't know if I can do it," she told Sarah one evening. "You are stronger than you think," answered Sarah, "and I will be by your side no matter what you decide." Emily hesitated for a long time what to do and finally decided to dial Lucas's number. Her hands were shaking and her heart was pounding. She knew it could change everything. Finally, gathering all her courage, she pressed the call button. The phone rang several times and Emily thought he wasn't going to answer, but suddenly she heard a familiar voice. "Hello?" "Lucas, it's me," she said quietly. There was a pause on the other side. "Emily, where are you? Why did you disappear?" Her voice trembled, but she forced herself to speak. "I'm calling because I need to tell you something important." "What is it?" he asked, his voice strained. Emily took a deep breath and finally said, "I am pregnant, and this child is yours." There was heavy silence at the other end. Lucas seemed confused. "Pregnant? From me?" "Yes," she answered, trying to hold back tears. "I understand that everything is broken between us, and I'm not 100% sure, but it's most likely your child." "Why are you telling me this now?" His voice became strained. "I just found out myself," she explained, "and it was difficult for me to accept it. I didn't know how you would react." Lucas sighed, his voice softening a bit. "Emily, we need to meet and talk about this." Okay, she agreed. They agreed to meet the next day to discuss the situation. Emily didn't know what this would lead to, but she felt a certain relief that she had taken this step. Lucas waited for her in the small cafe, watching the door until she appeared. When Emily walked in, she saw that he looked tired but determined. They sat down at the table and Lucas looked into her eyes. "Tell me everything." Emily started to talk about what happened after she left, but she didn't mention Ryan or the attack at the train station. She wanted to focus on what was important right now. Their possible child. "If this is my child, I want to be a part of her life," he finally said. "And I don't want to repeat my mistakes." Emily decided to return to Lucas after much thought. He showed that he really wants to correct his mistakes. She wasn't sure if they could rekindle their relationship as a couple, but decided to give him a chance to be a father to a child. Their life together was not easy. Emily still had deep emotional wounds, and Lucas worked diligently to regain her trust. He tried to be caring, cooked food, helped her around the house, and supported her during her pregnancy. Grandma Margaret also helped, adding warmth and wisdom to their home. One morning, Emily woke up in a strange pain. At first, she thought it was normal pregnancy discomfort, but the pain was getting worse. She woke Lucas up. "Lucas, it seems that it has already started." He jumped up, looking around in confusion, but quickly gathered himself. "Everything is fine," he said, helping her to get dressed. "We're going to the hospital now." Everything was not easy in the hospital. The labor lasted several hours, and Lucas sat by her bedside, holding her hand. "You are strong, Emily," he whispered. "We will do it together." When the baby's first cries were finally heard, Emily felt incredible relief and joy. They were told that it was a girl. "You have a beautiful daughter," said the nurse, handing the baby to Emily. She held the child in her arms, looking at her with love and tears in her eyes. Lucas, who was standing next to him, couldn't take his eyes off the little girl. "What shall we call her?" he asked quietly. Emily smiled. "Lillian, but I think we'll call her Lily." Lucas nodded, smiling. "Lily, she is perfect." After the birth of Lily, their lives changed. Emily and Lucas worked to become a real family. She began to trust him more, and he did his best not to let her down again. Margaret was overjoyed to finally have a great-granddaughter. She spent a lot of time with Lily, telling her stories and smiling sympathetically at Emily. One day, when Lucas came home earlier than usual, he overheard Emily talking to a friend on the phone. She was standing in the kitchen and her voice was muffled, but he could tell that the conversation was about something important. He didn't want to eavesdrop, but something in her tone made him pause at the door. "I know it's wrong, Sarah," Emily said. "But I was so vulnerable. Ryan, he was just there when I needed him." Lucas froze. His heart sank at these words. He was waiting for what would happen next. "I didn't mean to," Emily continued. "But what happened. I was confused then after the fight with Lucas, after what he did. I'm not even sure who Lily's father is." These words pierced Lucas like a knife. He walked into her kitchen looking confused but determined. "Repeat what you just said," he said. Emily flinched at his tone. "What happened? Is it true about you and Ryan?" he asked. "I heard your conversation with your friend." Emily turned pale, her eyes filled with tears. She lowered her head, not knowing what to say. "How could you?" His voice sounded depressed. "How could you betray me?" "Lucas," she began, trying to find the right words. "I didn't want to hurt you. Then I was confused after our quarrel. I looked for consolation, but it was a mistake." "A mistake?" Lucas raised his voice. "It's not just a mistake, Emily. It destroyed everything I had tried to build for us and for Lily. I regret it," she said through tears. "But I love you. I want us to be a family." Lucas looked at her for a long time, trying to figure out if he could forgive her. But the words that he might not be Lily's father troubled him. "I need time," he finally said. "And we need to know the truth. We have to do a DNA test." Emily nodded, knowing it was the only way to move forward. A few days later, Lucas and Emily went to the lab to do a DNA test. The atmosphere between them was tense. Emily couldn't look Lucas in the eye, and he kept his distance, focused only on finding out the truth. The test results came a week later. Lucas sat in the living room with an envelope in his hands while Emily stood nervously by his side. He slowly opened the envelope and ran his eyes over the document. "What is there?" Emily asked, her voice shaking. Lucas looked at her, his face impenetrable, but there was a glimmer of relief in his eyes. "This is my child," he said quietly. Emily put her hands to her face and cried. She felt a huge sense of relief, but at the same time pain from realizing how much she had let Lucas down. Lucas sat in silence, staring at the document. After a while, he looked up at Emily. "I'm glad that Lily is my daughter," he said, "but I know that I will not be able to forgive you." Emily bowed her head. "I know that it was my fault. I know I lost your trust, but I'm willing to do anything to fix it. For you and for Lily." Lucas thought about it. He could not just forget about her betrayal, but he also understood that he wanted his daughter to grow up in a complete family. After Lucas learned that Lily was indeed his daughter, he felt both relief and deep pain. His trust in Emily was shattered. He no longer saw the point in resuming relations with her. One evening, while sitting in the kitchen with Grandma Margaret, Lucas shared his thoughts. "She can harm not only me, but also Lily," he said. "I don't want my daughter to grow up surrounded by lies and uncertainty." Margaret looked at her grandson carefully. "Are you sure of your decision, Lucas? She's Lily's mother after all." "Being a mother is more than just giving birth to a child," he answered. "She betrayed me, betrayed our family. I have to protect Lily." Lucas filed court papers to terminate Emily's parental rights. This decision was not easy for him, but he was sure that it was in the interests of his daughter. At the trial, Emily tried to defend herself. I know I made mistakes," she said, "but I love my daughter and want to be a part of her life." Lucas's lawyer responded, "Love is not just words." Emily showed irresponsibility and put her interests above the interests of the child. "My client wants to provide a stable and safe environment for raising Lily." The judge, weighing all the circumstances, decided in favor of Lucas. Emily was deprived of parental rights, and Lily remained with her father and Margaret, who helped raise the girl. Lucas decided to fully focus on raising his daughter. With the support of his grandmother, he tried to create the best possible life for Lily. She grew up surrounded by love and care. Margaret spent most of the day with her great-granddaughter, telling her stories and teaching her old recipes. Lucas, even though he worked a lot, always found time to read to Lily before bed and spend weekends with her. Emily, although estranged from her daughter, sometimes tried to find out about her life through acquaintances, but Lucas remained steadfast in his decision, protecting Lily from any negative influence. Margaret, looking at them, felt joy that Lily was growing up surrounded by true family love. Emily, left out of their lives, realized that her mistakes cost her the most. But now it was forever. After losing parental rights and finally breaking up with Lucas, Emily's life was not easy. She left the town and tried to start with a clean slate elsewhere. At first, she rented a small room, found a job as a waitress in a cafe, and tried to pull herself together. A few months later, while working in a cafe, she met Marcos, a customer who often came in for coffee. Marcos was charming, charismatic, and always found a way to cheer Emily up with his jokes. One day, when he noticed her tiredness, he asked, "Difficult day?" Emily just smiled sadly. "You can say a difficult year." Marcos was interested, and their conversation lasted longer than usual. He said that he works as a mechanic and once went through a difficult period in his life. "Sometimes it seems that everything is lost," he said, "but there is always a way forward." These words touched Emily, and she began to open up to him. Marcos supported her in everything, helped her get out of depression and accept her mistakes. He did not condemn her for the past. On the contrary, he encouraged her to move on. Marcos invited her to move in with him, and although Emily was hesitant, she eventually agreed. Emily decided to leave everything in the past, not to injure her daughter, but to work on herself. Together with Marcos, she began seeing a psychologist to deal with her emotions and figure out how to move forward. Her goal was to become the kind of person her daughter could be proud of. She continued to write letters to Lily, even though she knew they would go unread. In these letters, she described her feelings, her hopes, and how much her daughter meant to her. For Emily, it was a way to leave a piece of herself for Lily, even if they never met again. Lucas, meanwhile, focused on raising his daughter. Lily grew up surrounded by love, thanks to him and Margaret. She knew her mom was a part of her life, but she didn't remember the details. Margaret chose not to judge Emily in front of Lily, leaving it up to her daughter to decide if she ever wanted to know more. Emily continued her journey of redemption, knowing that the most important thing is to live with a clear conscience and love for those who remain in her heart forever. Lily grew up not knowing the whole story of her parents, but was surrounded by love and care. This story left its scars, but also gave a chance to each of its participants to find themselves and change their lives for the better.